Hello and welcome to another episode of Devs on Tape. This time, an English guest is sitting in front of me, and I'm welcoming Simon Hunt, the head of product management for Oracle Apex. Hi, Simon.
Hi, Kai.
Sadly, I'm alone in the recording room with you right now because Caro, previous listeners from previous recordings, already know that Caro was waiting for her first child and was not able to make it to the conference here. So I'm talking to you today alone. So yes, welcome, Simon. Maybe you can introduce yourself to our listeners.
Thank you, Kai. Yes, my name's Simon Hunt, head of product management for Oracle Apex. I joined Oracle in April 24, and I took over as head of product management in October of the same year. My background prior to that was working in the UK Ministry of Defence, and I had done that role ever since about 2002. It was when I went from being a school teacher, if you can believe it,
wow.
in a girls' school in Portsmouth, where I was teaching design, tech, and IT. And I've always been in the Army Reserve, and I had the opportunity to transfer and do some full-time service as the in-service manager on an Oracle project.
Okay.
And that was early 2000s was when I did that. And really that was the start for me. So I came across Apex in 2004 and converted some of my first applications from Java over to Oracle Apex. And then I, sort of went back from the regular forces into the reserves, and then continued as a contractor and continued to do Apex and Oracle systems really right up until 2024. And I've done, probably about 60, or been involved with around 60 production applications across UK defence.
Wow. So when you were a teacher at the girls' schools, did you already have this IT background? Was it like informatics or something?
It was engineering. So my degree was in engineering, and I did that at the University of Central Lancashire. But that was, the late 80s and early 90s. We were doing a lot of programming as part of that engineering course. We were doing a lot of IT. It was really the kind of start, I guess, of the sort of IT revolution. And I always had a kind of strong inkling. I did, for instance, when I did my A-levels, I did computer science as part of that. And I was learning, and I did Pascal programming, for instance, if you can remember. Well, you can't remember.
Quite a distance between Apex and such a language, right?
Sure.
I heard about Pascal. Yeah, I heard about that.
Okay. Well, what's nice, Pascal is a functional programming language, not dissimilar to PL SQL. So it was actually when I picked up PL SQL, I was like, how similar is this to Pascal? I thought
there must be a reason that almost no one is talking about Pascal these days, right?
I guess, yeah. Well, you can remember all these different languages back in the day, Fortran, BASIC. You don't see them much anymore.
So, when you moved to the work at the Ministry of Defence, right? You had already Apex knowledge, right?
Not at all. No. So, and that was pre-Apex, so it would have been about 2001. No, the turning point for me was the first Java application that I was working on. It ran through an applet in the browser, and on the networks, that was seen by the network providers as being client code, essentially. And they had stringent rules around test and integration. So what I found was to make a single line of code change in those applications, it took a long time. It cost a lot of money. And at the end of the day, we were just delivering the content through a browser. And I remember talking to Oracle at the time and saying, there's got to be a better way to do this. I just want the web pages. And at the time, there was kind of JSPs and ASPs, but they didn't quite deliver the level of functionality that I wanted. And it was through conversations with Oracle that they said, well, we've got this product internally that we're looking to release. And they demonstrated it to me. And straight away, I was like, that's it. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Because I've got this great database and I just want to generate web pages so that people can, update the data. And that was it really and then in 2004, that's when really I started to use it. And straight away I could see the potential.
Now very passionate still.
Oh,
See.
yeah, yeah. Well, it doesn't go.
Yeah, sure.
But I remember that afterwards, we'd be talking to Oracle sales, and they didn't quite get it. So they would be talking to me about Oracle Portal
Yeah.
or ADF, and suggesting I look at these other sort of
Mhm.
development frameworks and tools. And I would be sitting there going, but it's not Apex. Apex is the one I want to use because it does everything that I need. And I could see the potential moving
Mhm.
forward. And of course, where are these other technologies now?
Yeah, you can see definitely that there's a huge impact, a huge growth that Apex made, right? So there's
Sure.
so much attention right now on that.
Yeah.
Back to the time where you built something for the public sector. So what my in my research and before the session, it was the most interesting question. So what kind of projects do you do in such a secret or critical environment?
Well, unsurprisingly, particularly with the Oracle and the Apex, it's really the back office systems,
Okay. Mhm.
is where it's been very strong, sort of, certainly over the last 20 years. Maybe that'll change moving forward. I think there's huge potential at using Apex at the edge, for instance,
Mhm.
and in disconnected environments. But, like most organizations, Apex is great with large data sets.
Yeah.
It's great at extending, the Fusion or the other SaaS back office systems, EBS, things like that. And that's really where it's come to its fore. And you can imagine in a defense organization, there's a lot of these back office systems,
Sure.
logistics, HR, that sort of thing. So,
But they have a very critical impact on security, right? So you have
sure.
to have everything very bulletproof
Yep.
because even HR, even logistics for some facilities might be so critical that you cannot compare that to usual companies, right?
Yeah, 100%. And when I look back over the last 20 years, many of the changes in Apex, particularly around security, came from, the UK defense sector.
Mhm.
It was certainly, I was talking a lot with the Apex team saying, we need to see these additional security features and they need to be on out of the box. And I'm thinking back, particularly around things like the sort of page protection, getting the
Yeah.
checksum on there.
Hmm.
You know, that I remember having those conversations back in 2005 saying, we need to have this session state protection in there. We cannot have it so that people can update, from other pages, session information. And then that needs to be on by default
Yeah, sure.
across all the pages. So, yeah, I can't think that, it is really important.
Yeah, sure. Do you have still contact to your previous work? So you're still in contact and getting all the security wise information. So like we need this, we need that, or we are using it like this. So you just switch chairs.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I'm what in the UK we'd say you're poacher come gamekeeper now.
Yeah.
So I'm now on the other side of the fence, and of course, I have customers, not just in the UK but across defence sectors, worldwide, talking to me about security, and asking for the latest tools and techniques to make sure their applications and their data is absolutely 100% secure.
So great, working for so many years for the same in the same working environment. What made the switch to now I'm going to Oracle? Was it just the offer, or was it your own decision to say I need something new? I want to be closer to the product I love, or something?
It was a bit of everything, actually. I think it's quite a difficult question. I have I have been doing the same thing for 20 years.
Mhm.
Okay. Although there's a lot of different projects going on, a lot of different challenges. But I did want to try something completely new and completely different. But I didn't want to go too far from my comfort zone.
Yeah,
I
sure.
wanted to do something where I knew I could add value. And of course, Apex has been my passion. It has been my career for the last 20
So there's
years.
just one goal where you could go to, right?
Yeah, it was either that or I was just going to stay where I was until retirement. But this is the last job for me. Okay, so I'm coming up to I'm approaching retirement age. This is the last chance to do something
Yeah.
different and just try something new for that last time before I look at retirement.
Sounds great. I wish you very, very much
Thank
luck that
you.
Apex is still growing and you have your position right at your fingertips. What you want to do with the product. So you already talked in the presentation, I guess, the keynote yesterday
Hmm.
about the roller coasters and so on. Here, that is not your thing, right? I
So
was guessing the thrill and the adrenaline might be something that is totally fine for you.
not so much. I don't know. It's age, I guess, creeps up on you.
Come on.
Is the problem? It's true. I think famously, I think I've said this before. My last roller coaster ride was at Polton's Park in the UK, and I went on the Velociraptor with my son, who's mad keen on roller coasters
Okay.
to the point where he closes his eyes just to make it more intense. And I went on this roller coaster with him, and I was fine going forward. I didn't enjoy it much, but I was okay going forward. But when I went backwards, the ride didn't stop when I got off. I had vertigo for 3 months afterwards. I was just felt drunk and dizzy
Yeah.
for 3 months. It was really very unpleasant. And I had to go to a chiropractor.
Hmm.
And I can't remember the name of the move, but they basically shake your head
Yeah.
to kind of
To
get
loosen it.
to get the kind of crystals back into the right place in your inner ear. It worked amazingly, which was good.
What a wise decision from my side that I don't invite you to a roller coaster and make the interview, right?
Yeah.
That would be
Well, a nice gentle one, maybe. I think I'm okay as long as I'm going forward. The log flumes look really interesting. I quite enjoyed the monorail from the
It's
hotel.
just a public transportation thing, right? You didn't raise your hands up, right?
No. I was tempted.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, for our listeners, maybe a little callback in case you didn't hear the previous episodes of Devs on Tape. We're currently at Apex Connect in Rust, and this is inside an amusement park, the Europa Park, it's called. And you have like 18 roller coasters here. So there are like two fractions of the visitors or the people here on the conference. One half is like constantly going to the to the rides between sessions, and the other ones that say no roller coasters for me. And now I can know where I sought you in.
Yeah.
All right, back to tech. You talked already about the AI stuff in Apex. I guess you are
Mhm.
very positive about that or optimistic that Apex will gain way more AI features than it's currently having, right?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. We need to be leading the way in AI.
Mhm.
It's what our customers are expecting. It's what the market dictates in order to remain competitive. But it's also wider Oracle strategy. We need to be moving forward with AI, but it's also amazing. I mean, I just look at it, what you can do now. It just blows my mind.
Yeah.
This is the next big tech revolution.
You know that the next question has to be there. What are we expecting from Apex to get in the next big features? Like, hopefully something you didn't tell anyone before. Maybe get some insights. That's something we usually do when we have someone from Oracle here.
Sure.
There's something no one else knows about that.
Yeah. Well, I know you know perfectly well. I can't say.
Standard
I
answer.
can't say.
Please repeat. Skip it.
But if you look at 2024, that was the first year really AI landed, and we got these new generative AI services. 2025 is agentic AI, is essentially where things are going. And then, that's where we need to be going with Apex. So it is going to be bringing in more of those agentic features, is where I certainly see the vision going. So getting it to be able to do things, I mean, I do wonder moving forward whether an Apex application will be a UI as we know it. Why can't it just be a chat interface?
Yeah.
And we'd start delivering Apex components out through a chat interface.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see things going. You look at some of the things we've got with interactive reports, interactive grids, the jet components, the faceted searches, those sorts of things. Actually, generating those through AI, I think is
Okay, so you have like two sides of the coin when you're developing the AI features, right? So you have the developer side, so make it easier for developers. So maybe so what I was talking about, like previous episodes of Devs on Tape, with I think Mike Hitchwa, maybe Chris Rice. If you get features like the exports from Apex applications are more readable, more writable,
Sure.
like YAML format, I guess, and you have AI which can generate something based on the prompts you're writing, and you can tell ChatGPT how the output file should look like, and you can give it a definition or maybe it's Cohere or whatever you want to
Yeah,
use.
yeah.
You can tell. So this is the definition of an export file of an Apex application. You have so many different modules you can use, like a page looks like this, an item looks like this, and
Yeah,
so on.
yeah.
Please create an application that do exactly that, what I want for my data. And it will be automatically completely created from start to end. So this
Yes.
would be something I would experiment with if Apex is not fast enough to provide it to a developer, right? So if you can say, I have this database here, and I can just tell you roughly what the user should do with the data in the
Yeah,
UI,
yeah.
and from there on, start generate. And then you like 2 minutes later, you have complete application in Apex, completely created by AI.
Yeah,
You're nodding, right?
I'm kind of nodding. I think that's the dream,
Uh-huh.
right? I mean, that's where you end up. I'm not sure it's going to be there. It's certainly not there yet.
Yeah.
So when I use AI, for instance, to write JavaScript,
Mhm.
okay, I don't expect it to write all the JavaScript in one go. It's just not realistic, and it actually creates more problems. What I'll do is I'll get it to do something small, and then I add a bit more, then I add a bit more, and a bit more. And I understand the JavaScript that it's writing. It's just quicker for it to write it than it is for me to write it.
Yeah.
So you go through this kind of iterative process. That's how I think it will go with Apex. I think it would be the same thing. You'd start with a small application and then you would add functionality to it. I don't think you would sit down and try and get it to build the application in one go.
Yeah.
It could do it. I just think it's going to create this massive application that you're just going to end up trying to delete bits out of it. And it's a sort of similar thing to now when you write an Apex application. It's like, don't go too fast, too quick, because
Yeah.
it takes more effort to change code that you've got. It's easier to get the code right first time. Does that make sense?
Definitely, yeah. So when if I imagine how this should work is you're creating an application and then you say create a new component like interactive grid, facet search or something, and then the page designer is asking you what you want to do, what you want to see. You're not clicking at everything like eight wizard steps or something.
Yeah.
You are just answering some questions maybe, and then the AI is just creating the one component for you.
Yeah.
And then you can refine it or something. This should be the first step, right?
I think so. I think that's more realistic for models as well, because you're asking the model to not do so much. It doesn't require as much knowledge to do those smaller steps, because you could pass it the context of where you're currently at, and then it's just doing the next iteration. Whereas if you say, build me an application that does X, Y, and Z, it needs to have the patterns and the knowledge, and the models aren't there yet.
Yeah.
It's going to take a long time, I think, for it to learn exactly how to build a complex Apex application.
That's exactly the next point I was guessing. So if you have something in the database like AI features and you have a model behind that, and maybe sometimes it's more affordable to train such a network or such a LLM or something.
Yeah.
It could get used of your patterns, how you are working. So it's not create an Apex application. I look to the application and said, oh God, what's happening in here? I cannot even maintain that code maintain that application because it's not as close as what I would do when I create the application by myself, right?
Yeah.
But if Apex is learning how you are working, like you're always creating an application, you're always avoiding select star from statements or queries.
Yeah.
You're always being so specific with your columns you're calling, or you're definitely every time you're creating an interactive grid, you're looking at not more than 5 to 10 columns, for example, displayed. Apex could learn that, right? So if at some point it should be possible to say, I need another page in this application. I have this new table in my data set. Please have a look at all the other pages and create it like that. That should be maybe the next step for you're just nodding, grinning. I don't know if it's like the human kind of idea app I'm currently feeding, right?
Yeah.
Or if it's maybe on the roadmap already. But yeah, I was very happy to see that we have AI integration in that. And I'm working heavily like on a project to have the tenders for the public sector to be analyzed by AI.
Yeah.
And that's the way we use currently Apex to communicate with assistants at ChatGPT, for example, from OpenAI. And that's the reason why I'm looking closely to new features regarding AI communication with OpenAI in Apex. And very interested to hear what you have to say for the future then, what's coming.
Can you rephrase the question? Well,
I know that there's an NDA for that. I'm just trying to get some new features out of you. What's coming concretely with AI in Apex?
I think it's fair to say that we're certainly going to be improving what it already does.
Okay.
So RAG is a real game changer.
Mhm.
And you'll see now that within Apex, we've created this kind of AI configurations section. And we started to add in RAG. But now that it's kind of more centralized, we can start to add in more features,
Yeah.
more things. So you're just going to get better AI features as we move forward. I can't really go into too much detail, but there's some really great stuff.
Oh, come on.
Really, really great stuff.
Our listeners are now very hyped to see what's coming. I guess that's your job, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So moving forward with the AI is definitely a step we need to see.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's like balance between developer tool sets or toolkits we can use to develop properly and faster in many cases, and also for the end user, right? So if we have the ability to have faceted search, interactive grid, or interactive report being created by AI, it's not a benefit for the end user, right? But if there's any feature like besides a chatbot that it's obviously the first thing you do with an AI for an end user and then the UI, right? But if there's kind of a voice interface, maybe you can talk with your application as an end user, not as a developer. That should be something that's on a roadmap too, right?
100%. I mean, that's where we're going.
Yeah. Okay.
So all the things that you can currently do with an Apex application, we will, I'm sure, be in a position where you can just do those through natural language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even if you're talking with the application, getting answers, but I could see what Apple Intelligence, for example, is currently doing. It's like rephrasing or summarize some things for you that you have just not the long text, not the long data set you're looking at. It's just condensing what you really need to know for this region. I'm currently rephrasing again a new idea for Apex. I can send it to you afterwards, or you can see it in the show notes maybe. But so if you are on the page and you see like diagrams or you see big data sets and you would prefer to highlight them in the interactive grid, but if it's possible to just click a button and it's saying, okay, this user is usually interested in having the business report for the current month. It's not interested in this and that and this, what you can see on the page, but it's just interested in the one answer.
Exactly.
It's been a good month, right?
And you see, I mean, what do we do at Apex? So within Apex, what we do is we take functionality that's already exists, either in the database or, in AI or, that's out there. And we're looking to make it super simple, declarative, secure, and where possible, free within the framework that you're already operating. That's what we're trying to do. So actually, if you look at AI and what's happening, in AI, what's happening in a database, that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to make it much, much easier, much more accessible for people to use.
Do you think your velocity on bringing out new features, AI-driven features to Apex, do you have a high velocity, or do you think it's still Oracle, or it's still a big company and you have to take care of many customers using it globally?
Yeah.
And you have to keep it a little bit slower to not overwhelm someone. So do you think you are in good pace?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important point that you make. The pace has to be right. We can't move too quickly. I mean, there is a real danger that if you go too hard, too fast, you alienate people, or you end up implementing technology that then doesn't last the course. And you have people committed to it and they need to be, maintained and supported moving forward. So we need to make sure that we get that pace right, but we can't be too slow. We've got, we are operating within a competitive market. We need to make sure that we're keeping pace with the competition and where possible, leading the way or being seen to lead the way. So it's a really important balance. Do I think we get it right? Pretty much, actually. I certainly, when I was a customer, which was, for over 20 years, I was very happy with the pace.
Yeah.
What I see now that I work for Oracle internally, I can see the level of investment. It's significantly increasing in Apex as Apex becomes much more mainstream, as it becomes a strategic platform for Oracle.
Yeah.
What we're seeing is much more investment happening with Apex, which is really great to see.
So you're still in contact with your previous work, right? I imagine if you have some new features, AI, like new release Apex 25.1 or something or whatever, and you bring up AI as a main feature, I always keep in my mind that customers there out there are saying, AI? No, we're not allowed to do that.
Sure.
So do you have some feedback from global customers that are saying, it's nice to have AI. It's
Yeah.
great to see that the product is being modern and innovative.
Yeah.
But we cannot use AI at all. We're not allowed to use any external service, even like ChatGPT, which is based in America.
Sure.
We cannot use it at all. So the next Apex release is basically for us is just nothing new, right?
And what you're describing is actually a large number of customers that I talk to are in exactly that position. What do I say to them? Vectors.
Okay.
Okay, look at vectors.
Mhm.
Okay, you can do vectors inside your 23 AI database. Vectors is certainly a good start point for AI. So you can bring that semantic meaning to your data. When you, and most of these organizations will eventually be able to adopt generative AI, and vectors is then giving you a stepping stone to that technology, because what you're going to want to do then is to do retrieval augmented generation, and it's much more efficient to do that using vectors.
Sure. So you, when you're developing new features in Apex, you see that you have the balance between like vector usage in the database and using external services, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Back in the days when REST interfaces were introduced, it was the same, right? So you had all the different DBAs or customers that are saying, okay, I have to open up the database to connect to REST endpoints
I
or
see.
something.
Yeah.
That's nothing we can do. And then you saw like years presentations, new features regarding REST services and what you can do with that. You can create interactive grids and reports based directly on REST endpoints or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I had customers saying, no, we're gonna do that. And now I'm seeing the same with AI, right?
Yeah, totally. But you can load your Onyx embedding models directly into a 23AI database.
If you have 23 AI,
If you have 23 AI.
this is still something. Maybe there's a coincidence that the same customers that are not allowed to use innovative new features, maybe like REST or AI, are not always on the newest database version. But
that's true.
At some point, you have to say you have to upgrade to have new nice things, right?
Yeah, exactly that.
Okay, great. Let's go from AI development to test-driven development. That is something you did years before. So the first time I saw you was like, it could be 9 to 10 years ago, where you're talking about a testing framework.
Yeah.
This is not leading to something with my other role when I'm not a podcast host. We will not talk about the product you know from us.
Yeah.
But regarding test-driven,
am I allowed to talk about the product?
You can, but I would not. Will not be someone who's trying to promote that.
Sure.
But regarding test-driven development, this is something that might have something to do with your past in the military, right? So I guess this is something important. To do there.
Without doubt. It's been, I guess, a hobby, a passion of mine. I could see the need. So if you're going to do agile, you need to automate.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to deliver regularly and get that delivery cycle down, you can only do it through automation. And we have great tooling. So Apex, you can run through a CI/CD pipeline. You can do all your database builds, so on and so forth. But how do you test it? And I could see the need for browser testing. It's complex, it's expensive, it can be very fragile, but it does test the whole stack.
Yeah.
So there's clearly benefits to doing it. The problem that I could see, though, was you had this highly productive technology in Apex, but then traditional browser testing automation, would generally be coded, perhaps using Java or something similar.
Selenium, something.
Yeah, exactly. So what you had is a low-code developer sat next to a high-code tester.
Yeah.
One would deliver a page in a day, and one would take 3 days to test the page. It was kind of it's not quite those metrics, but you can see the point that I'm trying to make.
Sure.
You would be losing the productivity of Apex because the automation testing was taking too long. So I was looking for a way to do that in a low-code way. Okay, so that was number one. So that either you could get your developer to do it, would be option one, or you could get your tester to do it, but using low-code in a more productive way. So that's number one. But then also, you've got to look at a strategy. So you've got to look at the techniques that you're using. So I came up with a couple of things. So when I'm doing browser-based testing, I only look at positive testing. I don't do negative testing. Okay. The reason being is, for each test, you've got maybe, I don't know, 10, 100 negative tests
Exactly.
that you
Yeah.
could do. So you're exploding the amount of testing that you're going to need to do. So that's kind of issue number one. And kind of issue number two is actually you want to test the critical paths, really, and you want to do it end to end. That's really what you're looking to do with your browser-based testing, is to identify those critical pathways through your application and then just test it, but also repeat testing it in different scenarios with different data sets, different user types, different roles, and that sort of thing. So it is about sort of building that methodology, around what you're doing, as well as then having productive test tooling. And that's really where I came up with what we called ATAF at the time, the Apex Test Automation Framework.
I remember that. Yeah.
And one of the unique things about Apex is you get this metadata in the database. So it's all defined within tables in the back end, and you can use Apex views to see what's going on. So you can look at any page, you can see what components are on the page, what the IDs are, what the labels are. You've got all the information. And that is what you would call a UI map.
Yeah.
Okay, in testing terms. Well, that's half of a testing framework that you've got right there. And what's lovely about that is it automatically changes and keeps updated.
Yeah.
So you would see other people writing frameworks and they had to maintain a UI map physically. We have a UI map available essentially in Apex, and it's always up to date. So I started to have this idea that we could use this to help, create this testing framework. And actually, it would tell me if something breaks. I would know before if a test is going to break, because I'll know that an item's changed, So I'm like, well, there's something here. And then I started playing with it and, built out the framework using Apex. And the idea was it would generate a script, but that script could be anything. It could be Selenium, and you've got all sorts of, different languages in Selenium. It could be Selenium. It could be Cypress. It could be whatever. And then you would be able to take that and you would be able to run that script. So that was the idea. But it does get more complex than that. Because one of the things you want to be able to do is reuse a test case.
Sure.
Yeah. So I might have a test case which logs in. It's a login test case. I only want to have that once. I want to use that, write it once, use it many times. Okay. But I want to then be able to log in as all these different users. So you have to separate your data from the test case. And then you need to be able to take your test cases and put them into different scenarios. So we could call those specifications, maybe. So you'd have test specifications, test cases. So I built all that out and I got it working. And it is an investment, but once you get it, once it works, it's amazing.
Sure.
It really is. So you can, do a nightly build and get it to do all of your critical testing and have it ready for the next day. So what would normally take months, maybe weeks or months to release was now being done automatically,
Quite a time saver.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. But it is an investment. It really is. It's an investment in training, tooling, and that kind of cultural shift. But if you're going to move to Agile, you need to be looking at this. So I talk to a lot of people that want to do it. So everybody's kind of like, this sounds amazing. Where do I start? And the first thing I'd always ask them is, what unit testing are you doing? Okay. And if they say, well, we're not doing any unit testing, I'm like, start there. Because with unit testing, it's actually easier to do and you can get a lot of benefit. But you can also do all that negative testing. And it gets you into the right frame of mind. It starts to introduce you to the concepts, the methodology, and that sort of thing. So if you're using UTPL SQL, or SQL Developer, or one of those which comes with a unit testing framework within it, start there and do as much of that as you can so that you're exercising all of your PL SQL packages. Do that first, and then it's a natural step to browser automation. Okay. But it also means that you'll do less with your browser automation. You won't be looking to test every part of your system.
Sure, yeah.
Because you've already got these unit tests.
I mean, you have like so many processes in the database that are working behind closed doors.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not even able to access them through the UI, right?
Yeah.
So if you click a button, create a data set, okay, you can check if the data set is there. But if you have like nightly cycles that are calculating new numbers, then you could just check, okay, yesterday I had this value, tomorrow I have this value. Is this the correct value? But it's not saying which procedures in the back end are properly working, right? So you cannot come around doing unit tests. So you cannot just only trust on UI testing.
Exactly that. Lino does a great session on this. So we just came off our Nordic tour. I got to see the session three times, and I learned something new each time. And he talks about ATAF. So he his first few slides, I was like, oh yeah, I remember doing those, about 10 years ago. But he covers all of this and looks at different tools, different techniques, and I'd certainly recommend, if you get the opportunity, to go and see it. It's worth watching.
There must be a recording, right? So I'm talking to Lino. So he's also testing products I might be or might not be affiliated to. That's something that might be in these presentations too. But yeah, so that's a very, very interesting approach. But what keeps Oracle or the Apex team from implementing something like ATAF by themselves? So if it's so necessary or important to do.
Yeah, I don't think we will. I've not seen it on the roadmap. What I think we can do is make it much easier. And there are several things that you can do. So one of the problems I always had was sort of sidebar menus, getting the IDs correct on those. So we've got hooks now that you can put static IDs, but I'd like to see us have a more stable DOM. Okay. So if you imagine region IDs, what you'll see is the number. There's like a long number.
It's automatic generated when you're not.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of these are generated from, the metadata tables where it's stored. And those numbers change. So if you were to change the workspace ID, or if you were to change the application ID, those numbers would all change. You couldn't build a set of automation tests and then test it, in different environments necessarily,
Sure.
If those changed. It wasn't a problem for me because, I was working for an organization. I was only doing it for one application. But if I had that application and I wanted to test it in all of my different customers and all of their environments, then it would be a kind of different proposition, I think. So one of the things that I would like to see us do is to make the DOM more stable. Okay. And then the next thing is getting that UI map. For me, was a very long concatenated SQL statement. Okay, so I would be selecting from one Apex view, which would give me the buttons. Then I'd have another Apex view that would give me the regions, and then another one that would give me all the page items. And I would kind of union them together to give me that UI map. What I would really like is if Apex delivered me that UI map. Okay, and it was, fast and performant. So I think these are kinds of things that we can do to make automation testing much, much easier to do. Okay. And then, of course, our partners are building out these frameworks. The ACE community are developing all these techniques and doing sessions on it. So I think in combination, we can absolutely crack this so that it's super easy to do, very accessible, and a natural add-on to Apex.
I mean, that sounds nice. So even if I already mentioned that I might be affiliated with one of those tools that are doing that, it's very nice to hear that the Apex team is providing more help to get it stable, right? So the specific example with the ID, the numbers in the ID, or like ID, or I think it was for Interactive Report IR, and then a very big number behind that. So what we, or the people I know working with that, are doing is, this is a learning part you have to do when you're a tester with a tool that is doing that. You have to tell them wherever you can set a static ID, do it. If you can't do it, you have to find a way to create a selector. And this is the part that the company or the group that is doing the testing framework has to find out a way, like, how do I access this element, even if it has different IDs? So I have to move up to the way higher element and go in there and say, okay, find the first element that it's from this type and have this attributes, and avoid getting the ID because this is changing, right? And if the Apex team is providing more help like that, I guess it will be way easier for people that are working with that. So successfully shipping around the test framework I'm affiliated to. But maybe to the end. So regarding developer enablement, so we already heard that you still or keep working on AI features for developers in the Page Designer. what else is going on, or what is coming in future for developers in Apex? So there is something I have to rush in very
Yeah,
quick. We see it in SQL CL. We see many project related features that you can work, like versioning systems, easier creating Apex applications back in the
sure.
day, export from there. But regarding Page Designer and Apex itself, what is doing for the developer enablement and experience?
Yeah, certainly around AI, what you're going to start seeing is, at the moment you can build an application using AI. The next progression from that will be to edit,
Hmm.
to add components, features, change pages using natural language. So I think you're going to see that whole sort of natural language development start to appear in more detail, within the page designer, within, different parts of Apex. So we're going to see much more integration of AI into the developer tooling that we've already got.
Are we going to see new components in the future? So always when the new feature is coming, like interactive grid, we were
Yeah,
waiting years for that. We were talking to different people from the Apex team. We are very close to them, so we're
sure.
talking each and every time and talking about things like the model underlying the interactive grid. We talk about so many things, and always when something new we didn't see coming is coming out and said, "Okay, I couldn't have seen that coming."
Yeah.
But for now, I see many improvements for working with the existing stuff. Are there anything on the roadmap that is regarding a new component I cannot think of right now?
I'm kind of limited on what I can talk about and what I can say, but what probably not new, but I think what you're going to see is with the existing components, you're going to see more AI features within those existing components, if that kind of makes sense. And
Definitely,
is
yeah, yeah. I'm guessing that all the components getting AI features, right?
you can
That
see it
is
coming, can't you?
definitely.
And we've already got, for instance, so we've put vector search into our search configurations,
Hmm.
for instance, major step forward,
Hmm.
and I think you're going to see that. So that then, starts to come into faceted searches with when you've got cards on screen and you want to do searches there, so you can see that AI is going to start to form part of all of those standard components that you've got within Apex.
Mhm. So no new, yeah, faceted search part two. I would ask you concretely for new components, but I cannot think of anything that is missing in Apex. And this is not just talking positive about the product, but yeah. So improvements for the page designer is nice. We have SQL Workshop in the browser right now from a different team, right? That is already awesome too. We have developing tools like Studio Code implementations that we
Sure.
can work easier than that. That there's nothing really more I can imagine that we should do. But maybe the last topic in the technical area might be something regarding the cloud
Yeah.
implementation for
Yeah.
Apex. So we always see changes in the development of Apex itself. So we see there's not a really early adopter environment anymore. It's rolling out inside Oracle internally. Then we have rollout like first cloud, then on
Hmm.
premises to download, and there's some time in between. And you use, I think, the internal Apex environments to debug the first beta
Sure.
version,
Yeah.
and then you go to the cloud environment. Then
Hmm.
you get the next feedback, and if it's everything stable now, and maybe one or two patches later, you roll it out to end users for
Yeah.
on premises, right?
Yeah.
What is the idea behind leaving out like beta testers from the beginning, like we did like the last 15 years?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I've got a good answer for you on that one.
Hmm.
I mean, we try to do as much testing as possible.
Hmm.
That's clearly important. We want to find out, the bugs and the issues with what we've done, way before they get anywhere to, near the customers. But we are kind of limited that, the environments are changing, we're learning. Cloud has clearly been a big game changer. So yeah, I'm not sure I've got a great answer
So
for.
is it coming back? Is it something like that coming
I,
back?
I'm,
That's
I hope so. I'm not sure is
Mhm.
the answer. I don't know. One of the areas that I think that, I would like to see us move into is to do more integration of cloud services,
Mhm.
OCI services, particularly, more kind of, I'm trying to think how best to put it, more switch on capabilities. So perhaps, if I'm spinning up an autonomous database, I've got Apex, or if I'm using the Apex service, for instance, make it much easier to bring your own domains,
Mhm.
So at the moment, there's quite a lot of architecture you need to do yourself. You would need to sort of switch on these additional services. Maybe we can make that a lot easier for customers.
Mhm.
Yeah. So if I've got an idea, I've got a domain that I want, I could just go and literally just do that almost in one click, and we're starting to do this more and more. Okay. Right. So in 24.2, we've made it much easier to integrate Apex with Fusion, for instance. Okay. And you can go to database tools and you can make your connections there between your Fusion environment and your Apex environment. I think we can do much more of this, so we can make it much easier to integrate with identity and access management, with object storage, with generative AI services, with DocGen, with all these other things, just to make it almost like it's just a pick list and you just, which services do I want to have with this Apex environment? The other thing that I noticed as a customer, when I moved to the cloud, I spent the first 3 months architecting what I wanted to do, because I wanted high availability, resilience. I wanted all these things that we needed to have, a web application firewall, for instance, so we wanted all these security features. We wanted to have, fail over to a separate data center, for disaster recovery, all that sort of thing. And we spent 3 months architecting, designing, testing.
That should be way easier
to get to that environment. So I think we can help customers here by having more reference architectures.
Like blueprints.
Right? Blueprints, exactly that. Having Terraform scripts available so that they can be built out quickly and easily. And so I think that's the direction of travel that we need to be going in. It would have saved me 3 months, but I'd also get a sense that I wasn't the only person doing it. I wasn't coming up with a unique configuration. This was a configuration that was tried and tested and was going to deliver for me. It would give me that level of insurance. So I think that's kind of something that we're going to be looking for.
It's always the same issue we already talked about, right? So if you're working heavily on integrating OCI services for Apex, where you can just enable things, that is bringing a way easier maintenance for Apex.
Yeah.
Then you have AI stuff that is working for people that are open to it and the companies allowing it. But there are still people with older databases on premises without the ability to use such a thing. And you still have to provide things for them, right?
100%.
Or do you say...
No, we still have to. That's one of the great things about Apex. Apps and services that I built in 2004 are still running. They're still there. And, Oracle maintains them essentially through just a normal patching process. It's the same application that I built, but it's getting all of these new features naturally as Apex upgrades.
Okay. One last open question.
Okay.
Very open, I guess. Where do you see Apex in 5 years? You have the time to think about that, but what is your vision of that?
Well, I think it's, and one of the things I see internally is the growth of Apex and the direction of travel. I see Apex being bigger, more popular, delivering more capability, really being at the forefront of low code, but getting more and more mainstream as we move forward. I see internally the commitment, the investment in Apex.
Will be still there in 5 years, I guess.
Without doubt. And I've seen, certainly as a customer, I've seen other technologies come and go. I don't see that in Apex. Apex is here for the long term. It's done so well. When I looked at it in 2004, to see where it is now, actually, it was a natural progression. I could see it. I think it's, if you'd asked me in 2004 where I thought Apex would be, I probably would have been describing something like what it is now.
We had different steps during the growth of Apex, like more releases a year. Not only waiting for the next bigger release, and then we have the step like Apex 5 and then Apex 18 or something like the versions rising. And now we have I think it was a plan to have 4 versions per year. I think this was the intention in doing that. But we see a very high velocity in new features. The team is growing. There was some time I knew each and every Apex developer that is currently working.
Sure.
I guess this is not even possible for someone inside the team to know everyone in the team, right?
Yeah,
So big.
Exactly. Yeah, so
what's the count right now? 60 people or
no,
are we
it's
above 100?
way over 100. And growing.
And still growing, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And completely global team, which is great, but it has its challenges. Trying to get everybody on a call, for instance, just with the time zones. There's some people, It'll either be very late at night or very early in the morning. But what's lovely is when, as you travel around the world and you go to different conferences or
Yeah.
different bits, you'll meet new people from the Apex team.
Would you describe the okay? Let me see how I can pronounce that. that the internal people working on Apex is comparable to the Apex community you have outside Oracle, so that it's kind of a specific ecosystem inside Oracle. That's something I heard back in the days, that the Apex people are almost like they're different than other people at Oracle and other teams, right? They're working together, going on conferences. They're very open and communicating with end users,
Yeah.
not closed up and saying you have to write an SR for that or something. So, here's my number, call me if something went wrong. I don't know how many times I did this in the last 11 years. But so do you think that the Apex developing team, even if it's beyond 100 developers, is still comparable to the community?
I think so. Yeah, I do. I genuinely do. It's the passion that comes through, and a lot of certainly even the new people that are coming on board have come from the community, have had something to do with Apex, have been in and amongst the community, and you get that passion that comes through. That spirit is still there. When you look even at this conference now, the local people from the Apex team all will come. They are here to talk to customers, to talk to partners. They are probably oversharing their email addresses or whatever, but they're passionate and they want to be talking to customers, and everybody's excited about Apex and, where it's going.
That's great. I'm looking forward to it not to change, and that it keeps its chemistry and it's working exactly like it's.
It has to keep its soul, right? I think moving forward, it's what draws people to Apex. We don't want to lose that.
Okay, great. What a nice way to end the Apex talk itself. So we're coming to an end almost. I have a couple of categories I have to ask you. So this might not be related to Apex. Maybe we will see. So the first question from the category, hypothetically, if you could undo one technological trend in the recent years, what would it be?
Right. Okay. I'm not going to win any friends on this one. Okay. But there is.
I heard that before in different messages.
Did you really?
Go ahead.
Certainly amongst my family. The one technology that's just driving me mad at the moment is gaming.
Okay.
Okay. I have a 13-year-old son, and certainly for the past 4 or 5 years, I am deeply concerned about the content, the amount of time that he is spending, in front of a gaming console. And I can see some benefits to it. So let me tell you this. So I caught him in front of the TV playing a fishing game. So he's literally, sat on the sofa, and the screen is the edge of the boat, and there's a river, and he's kind of using his joystick to fish. And then I pointed out that we have a river at the bottom of the garden that's got fish in it. And perhaps he might want to get off his backside and go and learn how to do it properly.
That's great.
And bless him, he does now fish.
Real fishing, right?
He does real fishing now.
Okay.
So but which is a good thing and a bad thing. I generally have to drive him to various lakes and ponds and stuff to go fishing. But, there is a serious side to it. I think, it's from my generation, I don't really understand it because the gaming consoles weren't that good when I was growing up. Literally, it was like a white block with a pixel that went from side to side.
Okay, that's what we're talking about, like ping pong thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it was pretty easy to get bored with that. So you play it for half an hour and you go and do something else. Whereas now the games are so good and so consuming.
They want you to play it for days.
Yeah, you can. And you get drawn into it, and it does concern me.
But luckily your son is fishing on the screen and
he's now fishing,
playing like first person shooters, right? That would be something you will not show that this is possible in the real life, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for German people or maybe from different countries, gaming has one little upside more than maybe your son is having right now. I have many friends and people around me that are learning English by playing games, because they know when I'm playing on servers, sometimes I have to listen to people talking English, and if I'm not able to understand what they are saying, then it's getting kind of a backlash for me. So I'm I'm not the best gamer if I cannot understand what they are talking about, or I want to socialize with them, so I have to talk to them in English. And some games are just available in English, so they have to learn learn to know the different words in the game.
Okay.
And that's some point I'm seeing really heavily in the last decade, that people are saying, okay, my son is almost fluently speaking English.
Yeah.
One side is, like I did, reading in blogs and finding solutions for programming issues. And most of the things were not in German, so I have to read English, and it's improving constantly.
Yeah.
And the other side is people are really playing games and need to understand something that is not translated, and they are learning English this way. I think
Okay.
this is a small amount of things. And if you are asking the ministry, especially in German areas, then there's always the negative point that people might get aggressive playing games where you have to be aggressive, and it affect your personal life and your character. But there are different opinions about that. So let's not.
You're giving me an idea there. So basically, what I need to do is to go and buy a game in Spanish, and it's going to improve my son's Spanish for his GCSE.
But the game should be very interesting to keep his attention, right?
Yeah.
So the market is very, very big now. So if you get the news GTA in Spanish, only in Spanish.
What about a Spanish fishing game?
But that would be a solution, maybe. So maybe kind of a book where the solution for the game is in, with cheat codes or something, in Arabic. Maybe this leads to something new. I will not go further with that. I have many ideas. Let's get to the next category. So like in private, are you satisfied with your work-life balance? And I'm expecting one answer I get almost every time when I'm talking to someone
really interesting.
Working with Apex.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Am I happy? No. And particularly if you ask my wife, she would be telling you the same.
Yeah, okay.
It is a part. I mean, I'm looking forward to retirement. I don't want to be working all the way till I'm 70.
Sure.
I'm running at 100 miles an hour. I do. It's a lot of work anyway. But at Oracle are great, by the way, at supporting you. They certainly encourage us to take time off, to do mindfulness courses and that sort of thing. So this is not a reflection on Oracle at all. I feel that I need to keep up to date with everything that's going on technology-wise in order to do my job properly. I'm also so enthusiastic about what's happening, so I will work into the early hours of the morning, building stuff, trying stuff, all this new vectors and AI and all the rest of it. So exciting. It is a problem. You go to bed, you try and sleep, your mind's still buzzing, it can affect your sleep, so on and so forth. So it's a constant challenge. It really is, to get that work-life balance. I've also got, 2 children. I want to spend as much time as I can with them and make it quality time and productive time. And that's not just about making the time. It's also about, making the headspace for them so that, you're not still grouchy from work, or you're not still tired from work, so that you can have that quality time. And then, of course, spending time with my wife is also very important. And it is difficult. I still have other commitments with the Army Reserve, and that takes also time away at weekends. And I want to continue to do that until my retirement age, which is fast approaching.
Come on. You're not that old. Come on. Always reminding me how old you are. Games you used to play back then in black and white color, right? And retirement coming on. But I mean, so in comparison to the answers I got before from Apex developers, not only from Oracle itself, but maybe developers using Apex, so if you ask my wife or family or whatever, whoever you want, they might not be so happy about that. That's something that is matching. But most of the developers are saying, okay, Apex is my passion. Apex is kind of my life. It's crazy to say that, but working 8 hours a day, at least, with Apex. And then I'm using so much private time to spend on that, because I'm very interested to how can I use AI to build something for my private life, or can I use new features in Apex I'm not allowed, or I cannot use in my professional working career. I have to try it out myself in the evenings, and that's great. And that's what some people say. Okay, I'm not proud of my work-life balance, but I'm happy with it because I'm doing what I love, and this is basically most of the time the answer to that. So I'm a little bit,
there's a lot to that. So that's true, and that's it's addictive. It's part of the problem. You do it is a kind of addiction, and although it's productive, you've got kind of got to do it. Actually, when you look back, when you reflect, you're missing out on some of the other things. I think
Yeah.
it's so important. I look at my children; they're growing up so fast, and I don't want to miss out on too much of that.
Okay, so at least if you're not announcing kind of a gamification from Apex, I don't see the addiction problem that much.
Yeah,
So if you, there was an idea some years ago. So have this deep talk on a little bit stretches to lighter funny talk. But if you have something like, oh, you created 3 interactive crits today, you got 1 star, and so you have like a high score list for developers worldwide, seeing how much progress they made in their Apex applications. Oh wow, you saved your faceted search query without one issue on the first try. Here's 1 star. And
do
so
you remember back in the day, the discussion forum used to be like that?
yeah,
Do you remember they
yeah,
used to get the
yeah.
different, was it medals and different,
Mhm.
you could
I
kind of
remember them,
different
yeah.
colored ones?
I mean, this is contribution, right? So you're getting your reward for doing something for other people. I still think
Yeah,
this is good, and this is the way the ACE program is working right now. So if you're
sure.
contributing, if you're doing something for the community, it
Hmm.
could be blog entries, it could be forums, it could be a podcast, maybe. You're getting points and getting your reward and helping other people. But
Yeah.
if you're alone working on Apex, maybe a small team at a customer side or at a company side, and they're doing the gamification thing and get some challenge working on. Maybe there's some time in the future for a
Maybe
project.
you could a third party extension could be the gamification of Apex.
Oh wow! And then I do like DLC stuff that you can pay for in game or in Apex purchases. Oh, I'm gonna cut that out of this episode, and next month you will see something in this direction.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So another question from the in private part. What role does your private environment play in your job? So are you surrounded by geeks, or is it the complete opposite? So in work life, you're working just with geeks, obviously, because
Yeah.
they're Apex
Yeah.
developers, database developers. Is it in your private life that you are having also geeks around you, or are you completely separating to say, okay, I don't want to talk about work, programming language, IT stuff in my private time?
Yeah. It's a good question. So generally not, I would say, but I do have an inner geek kind of
Circle. In a circle.
in a circle,
Okay.
so that I can dive into that. Yeah, but generally not. So, and I've got a number of social networks. I'm fortunate enough to live in a beautiful village, and we've got 2 pubs. We've got a cricket pitch. It's all very English country, and there's a wonderful community in the village. Every Friday evening or Friday afternoon, should I say, when I finish work, I go to the pub and I meet the same group every week
Mm.
of 80-year-olds. They are between 80 and 80. I think the oldest is about 86,
Okay.
and they're great. They're just lovely. And they are very interested in what I've been doing, where I'm traveling and listening to my stories, but then they tell me their stories. And what's great, and they're not going to thank me for saying this, they'll often tell me the same story over and over again.
That's great.
Like,
You know what you're expecting, right? So your plan
yeah.
is stop working on Friday saying, okay, I need to clear my mind now. I need to calm down. And then, all right, I'm going to the pub and they will tell me the story from the war, right?
Yeah, exactly. They'll tell me the same story. It's so funny.
I mean,
It's
you
great.
can get there prepared with prepared questions, right? And I said, how was it like this? So did you do that? And I said, oh, nice that you asked. Yeah, exactly. That is a nice thing. I would have.
And it's only for an hour. It's an absolutely, a charming thing to do, and I'm grateful.
It's
You know,
beneficial for them too, right? So
I hope so. It's certainly for them to get together. I mean,
just
sadly,
joining.
I mean, I lost my father this year, which was
Sorry.
sad. So, and I kind of missed that kind of engagement with, the sort of, I don't know what is now the older generation. I will be the old that
Come on
generation soon.
again,
Yeah, I
Simon.
know. But they're still there, and they've got some great stories. They really have.
Sometimes different stories, but
Yeah, not the same.
most of the time it's the same story, but it's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Last category is consumption. So, how do you deal with the growing flood of information via various channels? So, news informations are coming more and more, push notifications
Oh
on the
yeah.
phone. What are you doing against it,
Oh,
or are you just
it's
living with it?
hideous, isn't it? I mean, I was looking at, what was it, TikTok? My
Mhm.
goodness me, and I'm watching it thinking, oh, this is, flicking through.
Yeah.
And I looked at my watch and it was like 2 hours had gone. And,
Yeah.
I was like, right, get rid of this.
Yeah.
It's just highly addictive.
I cannot imagine that no one. I heard the story so often, even in this podcast and also on the
Yeah.
street talking to people. It's always the same. Like, I tried it, and I never get my time back for that. I
Do you
don't know how many videos I just scroll through.
If I could go back to the question you asked me earlier about which technology to get rid of, actually, that's a much better one. It's just that it's that addictive force feed of information.
Yeah.
And then as you start to choose what you like, the algorithms then start feeding you more of the same. So you're just getting this reinforced narrative, which has to be biased, right? You know, it's your own
Definitely.
bias that's coming through.
Sure.
I think it's deeply concerning.
But now you can install TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky and so on, and just follow Devs on Tape. We are on all those
That's the
platforms,
one.
and
That's
then you
the way to
can
go.
watch the 20 seconds or 1 minute videos all the time, and you lose your time. But it's for a good way.
Yeah.
And just a little advertisement for all listeners. Please follow us on the different platforms. Then you can see some faces to the voices you're hearing every 2 weeks here. We're sitting here in the amusement park, but I have brought some cameras with me, and you can see it on the social media platforms. Simon Hunt, thank you very much for joining me. It was a pleasure to talk to you and get the information, almost new features and that unannounced stuff. But I guess I have to dig deeper on that, and we might have a second challenge in the future. Thank you for joining me.
No, thank you.
I hope you're having a great conference there.
Oh, it's a amazing conference. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go explore this afternoon.
You will do? No roller coasters?
No roller coasters.
Just conference sessions?
Yeah.
All right. Have a great time. Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.